Grand Admiral Krell T'zar drummed his scaled talons against the viewing platform, the rhythmic tap-tap-tap echoing through the command deck of the Draconid warship Inevitable Conquest. His massive frame towered over the scurrying analysts as he glared at the blue-green planet displayed on the view screen. Earth. Such a ridiculous name for such a resource-rich world. Who names their planet after dirt? Only humans would be so laughably simple. "Magnify Sector 7G, Krell commanded, his voice like gravel tumbling down a mountainside. "Show me their largest military installation again." The screen shifted to an overhead view of a sprawling complex the humans called Pentagon. Krell snorted, releasing a small puff of steam from his nostril slits. 5 sides. How geometrically uninspired. The Draconids built their military headquarters with 73 sides, as any properly evolved species would. 1,000 years, Krell muttered to no one in particular. 1,000 years we've kept our distance, honoring that ridiculous treaty our ancestors signed. And for what? To watch these hairless primates fumble their way through primitive technological developments while poisoning their own atmosphere. Behind him, Science Officer Nyla P-Tax cleared her throat, a sound like wind whistling through a canyon. "The treaty expires in approximately 3 Earth hours, Grand Admiral. The War Council awaits your presence." Krell waved a dismissive talon. "Let them wait. I've waited a millennium for this moment." He turned away from the screen, his ceremonial battle armor clinking as he moved toward the transit tube. The Draconid Confederacy had maintained their surveillance of Earth since the great mistake of 2025, when a scout ship had nearly been detected. Rather than risk exposure before they were ready, the Confederacy leadership had signed the Isolation Treaty, promising to leave humans alone for exactly 1,000 years. No contact, no abductions, no crop circles, just silent observation. The transit tube deposited Krell into the War Council chamber, where 7 of the most decorated military minds in the Confederacy waited around a holographic display of Earth's solar system. They rose as one, their scales reflecting the blue light of the hologram. "Is it time, Grand Admiral?" asked Fleet Commander Zorax Brell, practically vibrating with anticipation. "Indeed it is, old friend." Krell's mouth stretched into what humans might mistake for a smile, revealing rows of teeth sharp enough to slice through starship hull plating. The humans remain blissfully unaware of our presence. Their most advanced detection systems are so primitive they couldn't spot a Draconid battlecruiser if it were parked on their moon. Which, incidentally, it is. A ripple of laughter moved through the War Council. They had all studied the reports. Humans still used combustion engines for most transportation, had only established minor colonies on their moon and Mars, and continued to waste resources on entertainment and leisure instead of military advancement. They spend more resources on things called cat videos than on planetary defense, noted Intelligence Director Max Travar, adjusting her datapad. "According to our analysis, they will surrender within 3 Earth days of our arrival." Krell nodded, satisfied. The Draconids had evolved beyond humor centuries ago, finding it inefficient. But even he had to admit there was something amusing about conquering a species that spent its time watching small furry animals chase laser pointers. "Begin the approach sequence," Krell commanded. "It's time to end this ridiculous piece and show these humans what it means to face a truly advanced civilization." Little did he know, the joke was about to be on him. The Draconid armada emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, a choreographed dance of destruction that had terrified countless civilizations across 17 galaxies. 273 capital ships, each the size of a small human city, arranged in the sacred fang pattern of the ancient Draconid war gods. Behind them came the support vessels, the fighters, the planet crackers, and the colony ships ready to claim their prize. Krell stood on the command bridge of the flagship, Apocalypse Bringer, his chest swollen with pride. The ship alone carried enough firepower to reduce Earth's major cities to smoldering craters. Its quantum plasma cannons could pierce planetary shields, not that the humans had any, and its hull was forged from neutronium alloy, impervious to any weapon the primitive species might possess. Position achieved, Grand Admiral, reported Navigation Officer Draconid Confederacy. We have established high orbit over their northern hemisphere, directly above their United Nations building. Excellent, Krell purred, his tail swishing with anticipation. Deploy the intimidation array. Full visibility protocols. I want every human on that miserable rock to see us. With a series of commands, the fleet engaged their external illumination systems. Massive spotlights brighter than a dozen suns lit up the hulls of the warships. Holographic projectors activated, displaying the Draconid insignia, a three-headed dragon devouring a planet large enough to be seen from the ground without telescopes. Communications, prepare the declaration transmission, Krell ordered. Broadcast on all frequencies, in all 7,139 human languages and dialects. Let no one claim they did not understand the terms of their surrender. Communications Officer Sarpex Vol bowed deeply. It will be magnificent, Grand Admiral. The translation matrix has incorporated all known human cultural references to maximize terror impact. Krell settled into his command throne, a massive chair carved from the bones of the last species foolish enough to resist the Confederacy. Begin transmission. The broadcast began, hijacking every electronic device on Earth capable of receiving a signal. Television screens, cell phones, computers, even digital billboards and car radios suddenly displayed or played the same message. Attention, inhabitants of Earth. The 1,000-year peace has ended. We are the Draconid Confederacy, masters of the Orion Cygnus arm. Your planet is now under our control. Resistance is not merely futile, it is illogical. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your defenses cannot stop us. Your militaries cannot fight us. Surrender all planetary governance to the Draconid Authority within one Earth rotation, or face annihilation. This is the only warning you will receive. For dramatic effect, Krell had ordered the destruction of an uninhabited space station orbiting Mars. As the transmission concluded, the station exploded in a dazzling display of Draconid firepower, visible even from Earth as a new, brief star in the sky. Now we wait, Krell said, settling back in his throne. I expect their leaders will be contacting us within moments, begging for mercy. He turned to Intelligence Director Mex, prepare the surrender terms. Make them appropriately humiliating. But as minutes stretched into an hour, an unsettling silence was the only response from Earth. No emergency broadcasts, no military mobilization, no panicked communications between world leaders. Nothing but silence. Krell's tail twitched nervously. This was not how conquest was supposed to go. Why aren't they responding? He finally demanded. Have they lost the ability to communicate due to fear? Fleet Commander Zorax looked up from his console, confusion evident in his reptilian features. Grand Admiral, we're detecting unusual communications activity from the planet. What kind of activity? They appear to be sharing our message, rapidly, through something they call social media. But they're adding comments? Krell frowned. Comments? What kind of comments? Zorax looked genuinely perplexed. I don't understand, sir. They seem to be laughing. Commander Vexra Kith, second in command of the Draconid Invasion Force, stared at the monitoring screens with growing bewilderment. In her 300 years of military service, she had participated in 27 planetary conquests. She knew exactly how subjugated species were supposed to react: fear, panic, desperate pleas for mercy, perhaps some futile military response. Not whatever this was. Grand Admiral, I believe you need to see this, Vexra said, her voice tight with confusion. Krell stomped over to her station, looming over the smaller officer. See what? Have they begun mobilizing their primitive nuclear arsenals? No, sir. They're making pictures of us, or with text on them. The main view screen flickered to life, displaying a grid of images now circulating across human communication networks. The Draconid intimidation broadcast had been captured, modified, and shared millions of times in just the past hour. One image showed their fearsome flagship with text reading "Came across the galaxy, still uses Comic Sans for war declaration." Another featured a crudely drawn Draconid saying, "I traveled 50 light years, and all I got was this lousy planet." Krell's jaw dropped, literally unhinging as Draconid jaws do when experiencing extreme surprise. "What is the meaning of this?" he roared. Intelligence Director Mex appeared equally baffled. "They call them memes, sir. A form of humor-based communication. They're making fun of us." Making fun? Krell's scales flushed bright orange with rage. "We are the Draconid Confederacy. We have turned 1,000 worlds to ash. We are not to be maimed." "There's more, sir," Vexra continued, her talons sliding across the console. "They've established a response channel and are broadcasting back to us." The screen changed to show a human in a wrinkled suit sitting behind a desk. Behind him was a hastily printed banner reading, "Welcome space lizards, please take a number." The human wore what appeared to be a child's Halloween costume version of Draconid battle armor made from cardboard and aluminum foil. "Greetings, oh terrifying space dragons," the human said with exaggerated seriousness that barely contained his laughter. "Earth's Department of Alien Invasions thanks you for your interest in conquering our planet. We're currently experiencing an unusually high volume of apocalyptic threats this fiscal quarter. Your annihilation has been placed in our queue. Current wait time for planetary destruction: approximately 17.5 billion years, or shortly after the heat death of the universe. If you'd like to expedite your invasion, please press 1 to speak with our customer service representative." Krell's tail lashed violently, knocking over a nearby data terminal. Is this their official response? Who is this insolent creature? "According to Human Broadcast, sir, he's a late-night comedy show host," said Communications Officer Sarpex. "Not a government representative." "Then where is their military response? Their panicked civilians? Their weeping children?" "Sir," Vexra said hesitantly, "they're organizing events, gatherings in major cities." "Ah, emergency evacuation protocols?" "No, sir. They're calling them alien invasion parties. Humans are dressing up as us. There are drink specials and something called a cosmic dance-off challenge trending on their networks." As if on cue, another transmission arrived. This time it appeared to be from someone claiming to be a representative of Earth, though the chaotic background of what appeared to be a crowded bar suggested otherwise. "Hey, space lizards," the clearly intoxicated human shouted over pulsing music. "We've drafted our surrender terms. First, you gotta try these jalapeno poppers. Second, teach us how you got your spaceship so shiny. Third, we want the recipe for whatever space alcohol you guys drink. Fourth, you have to participate in our karaoke competition. Do you know never gonna give you up?" The bridge fell into stunned silence. Fleet Commander Zorax finally spoke, his voice hollow with disbelief. "Grand Admiral, I've analyzed their global military response. There isn't one. Their armed forces remain at normal readiness levels. Some human military personnel appear to be sharing our message with laughing emoji attachments." "This cannot be happening," Krell whispered, slumping into his command throne. "No species has ever responded to a Draconid war declaration with jokes." Vexra's console beeped again. "Sir, they're now sending us something called playlist suggestions for your invasion. It appears to be music." She pressed a button, and the bridge was suddenly filled with the sounds of a human song titled Space Oddity, followed by something called It's the End of the World as We Know It, and I Feel Fine. Krell buried his face in his talons. "Make it stop," he groaned. But the humans were just getting started. "I want answers." Krell slammed his fist on the war table, cracking its obsidian surface. Let's deploy stealth probes immediately. Maximum surveillance coverage. I want to know why these primates are laughing instead of groveling. Within hours, the Draconid Confederacy had launched thousands of microscopic surveillance probes toward Earth. Designed with the most advanced cloaking technology in the sector, these tiny machines were programmed to infiltrate human population centers and report back with detailed behavioral analysis. The probes are in position, Grand Admiral, reported Science Officer Nyla, her scales a nervous shade of pale blue. Initial data is perplexing. Show me, Krell demanded, his patience worn thinner than a quantum membrane. The main view screen split into dozens of feeds from around the globe. In New York, thousands gathered in Times Square wearing makeshift alien costumes, many bearing crude cardboard signs reading "Probe me first and I, for one, welcome our lizard overlords." In Tokyo, street vendors were already selling authentic Draconid invasion souvenirs, including plush toys of Krell himself, somehow accurately depicting the scar across his right eye. In Rio de Janeiro, a massive beach party was underway with the theme Last Dance Before Extinction, though the revelers seemed anything but concerned about their impending doom. This defies all invasion response models, muttered Intelligence Director Mike's, frantically scrolling through data on her pad. Sir, the probes have also been analyzing human entertainment archives to understand this behavior. And it appears humans have been rehearsing for our arrival for centuries. She tapped her screen, and the view screen filled with clips from human movies and television shows. Independence Day, War of the Worlds, Mars Attacks, The Day the Earth Stood Still, Doctor Who, Star Trek, The Twilight Zone. Countless depictions of alien invasions, spanning more than 100 years of human media. They've been expecting aliens practicing for first contact scenarios since before they harnessed nuclear energy, Vexra said with growing unease. And in many of their fictional scenarios, humans defeat the invaders. Krell's eyes narrowed to slits. Impossible. No primitive species could defeat the Draconid Confederacy. The probes have detected another anomaly, sir, Nyla interrupted. Human communications networks show no signs of disruption or emergency protocols. Their internet is operating at normal capacity despite our attempts to jam their signals. What? Krell's head snapped toward her. Our quantum disruptors should have reduced their communications to pre-digital levels. Yet their networks remain operational, Nyla confirmed. And there's more. The probes found no evidence of planetary panic. No runs on banks, no food shortages, no martial law. It's as if they knew we were coming, Krell finished, a cold dread settling in his stomach. As if they were prepared. Zorax leaned forward, lowering his voice. Grand Admiral, could the humans possess technology we haven't detected? Some form of defense we've overlooked? Preposterous, Krell scoffed, but his tail twitched nervously. They still use fossil fuels for transportation. Perhaps that's what they want us to think, suggested Vexra. The probes found something else, sir. Humans have a saying that appears with unusual frequency in their invasion literature. We don't need to outrun the bear. We just need to outrun you. What does that mean? Krell demanded. I believe it means, Mick said slowly, that sometimes appearing weak is the best strategy of all. Krell stared at the continuing feeds of humans partying, laughing, and generally treating the greatest armada in Draconid history as nothing more than an excuse for entertainment. For the first time in his long military career, Grand Admiral Krell T'zar felt something unfamiliar crawling up his spine. Doubt. Enough of this humiliation. Krell roared, his patience evaporating like water on a plasma core. If they won't take our threats seriously, we'll show them the consequences of their insolence. He stomped across the command deck, tail lashing dangerously behind him. Target weapons on their Antarctic region. No human settlements, just ice, a demonstration of power they cannot ignore. The weapon officers exchanged nervous glances but followed orders. The Apocalypse Bringer's main cannons hummed to life, quantum plasma energy building to world-shattering levels. Fire, Krell commanded, his voice deadly quiet. A beam of searing energy lanced from the flagship toward Earth, striking the Antarctic ice shelf with devastating precision. A massive chunk of ice the size of Luxembourg instantly vaporized, sending a plume of steam visible from orbit. Secondary effects would include tsunamis along several coastlines, though nothing catastrophic yet. Broadcast on all frequencies, Krell ordered. Tell them the next target won't be uninhabited. Before the communications officer could comply, alarms blared across the bridge. Multiple launches detected from Earth's surface, shouted Defense Officer Raquel Morgue, his scales paling to almost white, or thousands of objects rising through the atmosphere. Defensive positions. Krell bellowed. Raise quantum shields. Prepare countermeasures. The bridge erupted into organized chaos as the Draconid fleet shifted into combat formation. This was more like it finally. The humans were showing appropriate fear with a desperate counterattack. Impact imminent, Raquel warned, claws flying across his console. Tracking 8,000 objects. Vexra studied her sensor readings with growing confusion. Sir, these objects are not following ballistic trajectories. They're floating? Magnify, Krell demanded. The view screen zoomed in on the approaching swarm. Instead of missiles or attack drones, thousands of colorful balloons rose from Earth's surface. Many were shaped like the cartoonish aliens from human media. Others carried banners reading "Welcome Space Friends and we come in peace pieces." Between the balloons flew small aerial drones, each carrying what appeared to be flat, circular containers. What is the meaning of this? Krell sputtered as one drone approached a nearby Draconid cruiser. It hovered near an external sensor array and opened its container, revealing a circular food item. Sir, said Science Officer Nyla, her voice strained with disbelief. They appear to be delivering pizza. Pizza? Krell's roar echoed through the bridge. A human food item, Nyla explained unnecessarily. This one has something called pepperoni arranged to form a crude image of your face, Grand Admiral. Krell stared at the screen, speechless for perhaps the first time in his military career. One of the balloons drifted past the flagship's main viewport, bearing a message written in perfect Draconid script. Better luck next time, space lizards. The War Council demands an immediate meeting, sir, Vexra whispered urgently. 20 minutes later, the council chamber vibrated with heated arguments. They mock us, bellowed Fleet Commander Zorex, slamming his fist on the table. We should glass their entire planet immediately. With what? Countered Mix, unusually calm. Our sensors can't even distinguish between their weapons and their food delivery services. How can we be certain our weapons would function as expected? Are you suggesting humans have technology that could interfere with Draconid weaponry? Krell asked incredulously. I'm suggesting, Mix said carefully, that we know far less about humans than we thought. Our 1,000-year surveillance may have been compromised. An uncomfortable silence fell over the council. The truth is, Vexra finally said, their response makes no strategic sense unless they possess capabilities far beyond our intelligence estimates. No species faces extinction with humor unless they know something we don't. Krell paced the chamber, his mind racing. Their orbital defense systems are primitive. Their military technology is centuries behind ours. Their social structures are chaotic and inefficient. And yet, Nyla interjected, they've somehow managed to completely neutralize our psychological warfare tactics, render our communication jammers ineffective, and respond to a direct attack with party supplies. Perhaps, suggested Mix, her voice barely above a whisper, we should consider the possibility that they've been aware of us all along. That the primitiveness we've observed is deliberate misdirection. The thought hung in the air like a toxic gas cloud, slowly suffocating the Draconid's confidence. Impossible, Krell said, but his denial lacked conviction. No species could fool the Confederacy for a millennium. No known species, corrected Max. But what if humans are something new? The emergency klaxons tore through the tense silence of the War Council chamber. Intelligence Officer Nexus P. Tarl burst through the doors, his normally immaculate uniform disheveled and his breathing labored. As the most junior officer present, protocol demanded he wait to be acknowledged before speaking. Instead, he slammed a data crystal onto the table with such force that it cracked the already damaged surface. "We've been deceived," Nexus gasped, foregoing all military decorum. Completely and utterly deceived. Krell rose to his full height, towering over the young officer. "Explain yourself, before I have you ejected into space for this interruption." Nexus activated the data crystal, and holographic displays erupted around the room. Technical schematics, sensor readings, and intercepted communications swirled in a dizzying array of evidence. "I've been running deep analysis on human broadcasts since their unusual response began." Nexus's voice stabilized as he slipped into the familiar territory of data analysis. "At first, I thought their calm was ignorance or stupidity. Then I found this." He gestured, and one of the holographic windows expanded, showing what appeared to be a children's cartoon from Earth. In it, colorful animated characters battled invaders who looked suspiciously like Draconids. "This program aired 70 Earth years ago," Nexus said quietly. "The resemblance to our species is not coincidental. They've known about us for centuries." "Impossible," Krell whispered, but the evidence continued to mount as Nexus swiped through more examples. Human science fiction contains accurate depictions of Draconid physiology, technology, even specific military formations. Their comic books show vessels identical to outdated Draconid cruisers. Their video games simulate combat against forces using exact replicas of our tactical patterns. "How?" demanded Fleet Commander Zorax, his voice hollow. "Our stealth technology is undetectable." It was, Nexus confirmed grimly. Until the humans developed quantum entanglement detection arrays during what they call their Cold War. They disguised the technology as nuclear missile detection systems, but they were actually tracking our observation ships. Mix's analytical mind connected the dots first. If they've known about us all along, then their entire technological development has been a carefully orchestrated deception, Nexus finished. Our intelligence suggested they abandoned their space program after reaching their moon. In reality, they moved it underground literally. Beneath the surface of their Mars colony lies a shipyard larger than our primary construction facility in the Rigel system. Nexus projected a new set of schematics. These energy readings, which we dismissed as background radiation, are actually power signatures from military installations hidden throughout their solar system. They don't have a handful of primitive orbital platforms, they have a network of stealth defense satellites with capabilities that... He paused, swallowing hard, that exceed our own. "And the laughter?" Vexra asked quietly. "The parties? The ridiculous messages?" "Psychological warfare," Nexus said simply. "They've studied our species for as long as we've studied theirs. They know Draconids evolved from apex predators who interpret fear as weakness and invitation for attack. By showing no fear, by treating our arrival as entertainment, they've completely disrupted our tactical doctrine." The room fell silent as the full implications sank in. Every scrap of intelligence, every assumption, every strategic advantage the Draconids thought they possessed had been carefully manipulated by the primitive humans. Krell stared at the holographic evidence, his mighty frame suddenly seeming smaller. "They've been waiting for us," he realized, horror dawning in his reptilian eyes. "This isn't an invasion. It's a trap." "And we sailed right into it," Nexus confirmed. "Grand Admiral, their stealth fleet has been moving into position around us for the past 3 hours. We're completely surrounded. The tactical display suddenly lit up like a festival of lights. Where empty space had existed moments before, hundreds of sleek vessels now materialized, their stealth systems deactivating in perfect synchronization. The human ships were nothing like the clunky, utilitarian designs the Draconids had observed in Earth orbit. These were elegant, powerful machines that seemed to bend the very fabric of space around them. Proximity alert. Defense Officer Rakal shouted, his voice cracking with panic. Human vessels detected within our formation. They're everywhere. Indeed, the stealth ships had appeared not just around the Draconid fleet, but throughout it between capital ships, alongside cruisers, but even within the defensive perimeter of the flagship itself. The precision required for such a maneuver was beyond anything Krell had witnessed in his 3 centuries of military service. Weapons status. Krell demanded, falling back on training despite his growing dread. Weapons, or Rakal's voice trailed off as he stared at his console in disbelief. Weapons are offline, sir. All fleet vessels reporting the same. Life support and propulsion remain functional, but weapons, shields, and communications are unresponsive. Impossible, roared Krell. Our systems are isolated. There's no way they could. Every screen on the bridge suddenly flickered, including personal data pads and even Krell's retinal implant display. The Draconid command interfaces vanished, replaced by a colorful animated character, a grinning human female with impossibly large eyes and pink hair tied in 2 bunches. Hi there, space friends. The cartoon human chirped, her voice sickeningly cheerful. I'm Starlight Sally from Galactic Pals, Earth's #1 children's show about peaceful extraterrestrial relations. Today we're learning an important lesson about playing nice with our neighbors. Krell let out a roar of frustration that would have terrified any natural predator in 3 sectors. What is happening? How are they in our systems? Science Officer Nyla was frantically analyzing data on her backup terminal. Quantum entanglement intrusion, sir. They've somehow paired their computing systems with ours at the quantum level. Our firewalls are useless. They're not hacking through our defenses. They're already inside them. The cartoon continued, now joined by a purple creature with tentacles. Remember, friends, just because you have big scary weapons doesn't mean you should use them. The best way to make friends is to ask nicely and share your toys. A new signal cut through the childish broadcast, this one displaying a stern-faced human woman in a simple dark uniform bearing no insignia or decoration. The lack of ostentatious medals and honors, so different from Draconid military tradition, somehow made her seem more imposing. This is Fleet Admiral Eliza Blackwell of the Earth Defense Force. Your systems have been temporarily disabled as a demonstration of capacity, not intent. We could have destroyed your fleet. But that is not our way. We are transmitting a peace proposal to your secure channels now. You'll find our terms generous, considering the circumstances. On his personal channel, Krell received the human proposal. It was shockingly reasonable: mutual recognition, technological exchange, territorial respect, and even assistance with the Draconid Confederacy's ongoing resource shortages that had driven their expansionist policies. We've known about your species for 800 years, Admiral Blackwell continued. We've studied your culture, your biology, your technology. We could have struck at any time, but we chose to wait, to observe, to understand. We don't want war, Grand Admiral T'zar. We never have. But make no mistake, if you force one upon us, you will not survive it. To demonstrate her point, one human vessel, barely a tenth the size of the Apocalypse bringer, fired a single weapon. A nearby uninhabited moon shattered into perfectly equal fragments, as if sliced by a cosmic scalpel. The bridge fell silent. The human vessels are powering down weapons, Vexra reported quietly. They're giving us space to consider their offer. Krell's mighty claws gripped the arms of his command throne, leaving deep gouges in the metal. Pride demanded he fight to the last Draconid, to die gloriously rather than accept humiliation. Yet logic, cold, undeniable logic, told him this was a war they had already lost before firing the first shot. The Draconid Confederacy, terror of 17 galaxies, had finally met its match in a species that found their threats so non-threatening they responded with children's cartoons and pizza deliveries. Grand Admiral, Vexra prompted gently. Your orders. Krell closed his eyes, the weight of his species' future pressing down upon his armored shoulders. When he opened them again, there was something new there, something very few had ever seen in a Draconid warrior. Humility. 3 days later, Grand Admiral Krell T'zar stood in the Earth orbital diplomatic station, surrounded by humans who seemed impossibly relaxed in his presence. The peace treaty, all 57 pages of it, lay signed on the ornate table between the delegations. On behalf of the Draconid Confederacy, I formally acknowledge this alliance, Krell said, the words tasting strange on his tongue. Not bitter, as he had expected, but simply new. Fleet Admiral Blackwell nodded respectfully. Earth welcomes this partnership, Grand Admiral. Your people's knowledge of bioengineering alone will help millions of our citizens. We have much to learn from each other. Krell's tail swished thoughtfully. There is one thing I still do not understand, Admiral. When faced with annihilation, your species responded with jokes. Why? A human scientist stepped forward, Dr. Talia Maxwell, Earth's foremost xenopsychologist. Humor is a uniquely human coping mechanism, Grand Admiral. When we encounter stress or fear, many of us convert that energy into laughter. It's how we've survived our often chaotic history. So you were afraid? Krell asked, a glimmer of satisfaction in his reptilian eyes. Cautious, corrected Dr. Maxwell with a small smile. But we knew your psychology well enough to understand that showing fear would only encourage aggression. Besides, our analysis indicated a 97.3% chance that once you understood our actual capabilities, you would choose diplomatic relations over mutual destruction. Krell snorted, a puff of steam escaping his nostril slits. You were very confident in your assessment of a species you had never officially met. We're good at reading people, shrugged Ambassador Jameson, the human diplomatic lead. Even scaly people with tails. For the first time in the negotiations, Krell's mouth twitched in what might have been the Draconid equivalent of a smile. 6 months later, Krell sat in the human embassy on the Draconid homeworld, attempting to understand the concept of stand-up comedy. Ambassador Jameson had insisted it was crucial to comprehending human culture. So the human says to the bartender, "Why the long face?" explained Jameson. You see, it's funny because horses naturally have elongated facial structures, but long face also refers to looking sad, so it's a play on. I understand the wordplay, Krell interrupted, his voice gravelly but patient. What I fail to comprehend is why the horse would require an alcoholic beverage in the first place. Their digestive systems are not equipped to process ethanol efficiently. Jameson sighed. That's not never mind. Let's try another one. Over the months, Krell had developed what humans might call a grudging respect for their species. The realization that humans had always been the more advanced civilization had been humbling, but also educational. The Draconid Confederacy was beginning to incorporate human diplomatic approaches into their previously conquest-driven expansion policies. As the meeting concluded, Ambassador Jameson collected her datapad. Oh, I almost forgot. What do you call a cold-blooded troublemaker? Krell tilted his massive head. I do not know, Ambassador. What do you call such an individual? A reptile dysfunction. Krell stared at her blankly for precisely 4.7 seconds before letting out a sound no human had ever heard, a rumbling, hissing noise that shook the room's glassware. It took Ambassador Jameson a moment to realize the fearsome Grand Admiral of the Draconid Confederacy was laughing. I understood that reference, Krell announced proudly. It is humorous because it connects our reptilian biology with your species' reproductive medical conditions while also suggesting misbehavior. His expression shifted to confusion, though I failed to see how the two concepts are logically related. Ambassador Jameson patted his armored shoulder. That's the thing about humor, Grand Admiral. Sometimes it doesn't have to make perfect sense to be funny. Krell nodded sagely, making a note in his Understanding Humans database. Perhaps there was something to this humor after all, not that he would ever admit it to the War Council.